Hey, today I'm going to talk about the new map Corrode, and honestly, I think this map is pretty cool. I think it has a lot of I think in terms of style and in terms of the way it looks, I think it's really good. I think macro wise, which is what I'm going to mainly talk about today, because I don't have access to the map, so I can't really talk about too much stuff in micro sense, like certain angles and that kind of stuff. But I can talk about a lot of the macro part of this map, and from just the map layer alone. And I imagine this map is going to be a retake simulator a tiny bit on A, but we'll see how it goes. For me, I think that A is going to be very problematic because of these walls here being kind of paper thin for the Odin. So it means that you can just have reveals in this sort of area and then spam through. So defense wise, it's going to be quite decent if you actually contest this main area. If you don't contest that main area, the attackers are going to have the easiest time of their lives, because they, in my opinion, this position, A past this point, should be fairly takeable. So, for instance, I think this smoke here is actually wrong. I think you're going to be smoking like this. Or maybe if there's possible, you would smoke like this, but I don't really know if it's possible. Maybe if some sort of Viper wall like this could be good, but then don't really know if you're going to really have the angle for it. So we'll have to see. That's something I'm going to have to test. But yeah, I think that overall, you're going to be smoking somewhere like this, and then it should be fairly easy to take A. And once you've taken A as the attack on this map, I think it's just over. I think it's super hard for the defenders to retake this. One choke here, and then the other choke is over here. But the problem is with this one is that it's very much in neutral space. So it means that if there's any sort of lurk over in these positions, they're going to get contested on timings and probably lose. Which means that it's going to be really hard to retake this in any real way. This one choke is just destroying this site in that way. It's very similar to Sunset in the way that it's kind of laid out, with this sort of wall with the elbow section, then the main section. The problem is, and the reason why Sunset doesn't suffer from this, is because not only is this wall bangable, so enemies can, the attacking team can play retake from over here and wall bang this corner, for instance, or this corner over here. There's probably going to be lineups for them, or maybe probably the corners of the site as well, like this and this. Not only that, but it's also not connected here, meaning that there's only one choke. So it's going to be super hard for the attackers to kind of just get in, the defenders to just kind of get into the site to begin with. So I think it's going to be very difficult to play this site out as defense. As a result, I do think you're going to be playing 3 players here. I think it's going to be something like a 1-1-3. And I think that B site is fairly defense-sided. I feel like the map is kind of split like this in a lot of ways, but all this is kind of like the attack zone and all of this is kind of like the defense zone. Because I feel like B is pretty good because it's like a faster rotation, less kind of neutral space here. So defenders are going to have an easier time kind of keeping the space and going through, rotating to B through this space. The tower is pretty good for initially defending. This sort of area over here is also good for initially defending. I can show you on another freeze frame I have. I don't know how you're actually meant to defend this site. Attack this site. Because I feel like the defenders kind of have all the options they need. If you kind of smoke like this, you can still sit in this angle. If you smoke like this, well, realistically, you should smoke making sure that this is covered so they can't see you. But this angle is pretty strong for retaking, and you can still jump out onto this roof and do crazy things, probably. You can smoke on top and TP, and I think we actually did see that in the show match from Mel. And you can even play these angles. You can, the mid rotation can be from this and play this angle, that kind of stuff. I think that overall, this site is difficult to attack into. And I think if you want to even defend the retake on this site, you can't just play on site because I think the angles are too bad. So I think you really need to either A, make sure you're controlling a lot of mid so you can play through the mid section. I then don't know what you do for post plant in terms of where you can plant. If this is wall bangable by an Odin, maybe you can play towards the mid section with Odins, or a one Odin or something like that. But even then, it's kind of crazy. With how difficult it's going to be to then see the bomb directly, like that. So you probably end up planting here, or maybe here. And even then, it's not great great for post-plant. And then the other way I can see you kind of defending the retake is by making sure you control all this area and defending at this choke point here. I think that's the 2 ways you're going to hold on to the retake on this site. Otherwise, I think it's very difficult. Maybe you can play over here and spam the bomb over here. If you plant the bomb here and then spam this retake, this wall, that might be the only good option. And even then, I'm not sure if that's necessarily a good option, simply because of how much less stall there's going to be throughout the whole rest of the site. Because playing in main, for instance, and spamming is only really that good if there's barriers in the way to make them super slow at actually routing you out in main. So if there's a lot more like angles they need to clear in the rest of the site, it becomes really hard for them to have time to clear all this and then come and get you in main. It's like similar to A really, where it's going to take them a long time to kind of get through this section to then come and route you out in main. So you've got a lot of time to then spam this bomb and that kind of stuff, and they can't necessarily come out and get you very easily. Here is not the same story. They can come out and get you fairly easily. There's not much cover here. There's like this box, and that's it, and this wall, I guess, but it's also spammable. So it's going to be difficult for you to defend the retake on B site. So I do think that it's going to be very much attack goes A lot, or aim to end on A lot, and try to stay away from B in any sort of even sort of situations. They don't really want to end B unless they can guarantee very strong advantages in map control elsewhere, like a good lurk, for instance, through the midsection, or a good lurk through the A section. But even then, you probably would want to rotate your team back to A if you do get a good lurk through the A section anyway. Yeah, I think we are just going to be looking at a lot of A retake on this map because of just how bad it is to retake on B. Also, how good it is to retake on B. So it's going to see a lot of A. Yeah, so that's kind of it for the video. I think that this map is pretty cool overall, but I am concerned about how crazy the A site looks, I guess, and how easy it could be for the attackers to play post plant in this site. So we'll just have to see. I imagine that this might get a tiny bit of a rework eventually. It kind of depends on how the comps play out, because I do think this is actually quite open map in terms of composition. I think you can go quite a few different recon. I think you go both recons, you can go Fade or Sova, and I also think as well, or pretty much all the Sentinels, maybe aside from Killjoy, is playable on this map. I think that all the Sentinels are good on this map, and I think that there's gonna be a lot of teams. Like, all the teams are going to have different comps in mind, especially across regions. We're probably going to definitely see more comp diversity. I'm just struggling to think if we're going to see any strat diversity. In the way that at the core of the strat, it's going to be we take A and we defend A through the wall with Odins. And we scan with whatever scan we have. We play different sentinels to defend the people like embedded in the main section, so then they can't really get pushed very easily. We have a lot of store with say voice raisers, or we have the cipher cages plus trip combo to kind of stop them or decentivize them from pushing us as much, and that kind of stuff, right? I guess Killjoy could also be useful in that situation with the ult and that kind of stuff too, in post plant. But I think the reason why I don't like Killjoy on this map is that I think on the actual taking of the sites, don't think she's going to be particularly good. And that tends to be how she's used more in solo queue than pro. So maybe we see her in pro, we don't see her much in solo queue. That might be the play for that. But yeah, I think that overall I like the map, but we'll just have to see if it's going to be problematic or not. So I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in my next one.